and she would just stay at home or whatever. But after a few months, I had the money saved up. Now at the time, minimum wage was $3.25 an hour, but the person who owned this grocery store was not my favorite person, and he found a loophole where he could pay us less than minimum wage. I don't remember how he did it, but we only made those of us who were in high school, we only made $3.20 an hour. So at $3.20 an hour, it takes a while to save up money, but I did. And so once I had the $500, I gave it to my mom. It was like a down payment on a car. And then it was up to me to figure out what car I wanted to buy. So she would buy it, and then I would have to make payments to her every month. I would have to make payments the first of the month. I had to keep my grades up, and I had to just keep up with. I still had chores at home I had to do, so I had to keep up with all that. And and she would pay my insurance, but I would have to pay for gas for the car and any repairs needed on the car. And this was the agreement that we came to. I thought it was pretty good. I still think it's good. I'm going to do it for my kids too. Just in my opinion, I think I took better care of the car, and I think I was more responsible because I knew if anything happened to the car, it was going to be my responsibility. She said, if you wreck this car and it's your fault, I will still expect you to pay for it. Of course, if there's a wreck and it's not your fault, that's different. But if you're being irresponsible and you damage the car or total the car, you will have to continue paying until you pay for it, because that is the way life works. You have to be responsible for things, and your actions have consequences, and it's not going to change when you're an adult. It's going to be the same. So anyway, I picked the worst possible car you could ever pick for the most part, and that was a very valuable lesson too. I bought a Pontiac Fiero, and it was a lemon. It was horrible. I spent more money on repairs than I spent on the car, but I drove that up until this car was constantly breaking down on me. I had constant problems with it, mainly with the cooling system and the electrical system. I'm just lucky it didn't catch on fire. I mean, they had a habit of bursting into flames, and they're called Fieros. It's pretty funny, but yeah, they burst into flames. Fortunately, mine did not do that. But I had a talk with the car my senior year. I said, look, if you'll just get me through high school, I won't ask anything else of you. If you just get me through high school, I will leave you alone. That car, I kid you not, that car, hang on a second. So that car, I had a cough and fit. I'm okay now. That car, okay, graduation night. So I've just graduated high school. I went straight from the school to McDonald's because I was meeting somebody there. I had parked in the McDonald's parking lot after graduation. That car never started again. It died that night and could not be revived. It was hilarious. Like, well, it held up its end of the bargain. It got me through high school. And then it just died. We had to bargain though. We had to haggle. My mother. I found out my mother's very good at that. We were there for about 2 hours, but we got it at a really good price. I'm thinking we got that car for like $8,500 or something, and it was brand new. I don't remember. But it was a really good deal. So I got that car, and so it was in my name, and I was going to be making all the payments on it. I still remember how much the payments were. They were $198.83 a month. I still remember that. And so I was working at Black & Decker. I worked there all summer and made really good money. I think I was making like $8 or $9 an hour, which back then was really good. And so I was able to make a really good down payment on the car and, keep my payments up. So I had this car, and so I went back to school, and I lived off campus my sophomore year. And I got a job at Eckerd's. They were big in Florida and up the East Coast, but I don't think they exist anymore. I think they were bought out by Rite Aid, and then Rite Aid got bought out by CVS or something. Anyway, it was in Eckerd's when I worked there. And I started out working in the front, in the camera. They called it the camera department because a lot of people at that time, this was in the early 90s, people would come in with their rolls of film. Do you remember the little kiosk? I don't know if they still have it or not, but the little kiosk, and you get the little envelope and you write your information on it, and you tear off the little tab with the number on it, and then you put your roll of film in there, you seal it up and drop it in the little kiosk little thing, and you have to wait for your pictures to come back. So we had to manage that. And when people came in to pick up the pictures, we had them all sorted by last name behind the counter, and you'd have to get the pictures out and all that stuff, and ring people up. I was a cashier again. And this store also did not have a scanner, so the price had to be manually keyed in. And I got to mention in my interview, I actually have a lot of experience with that, because with my job at the old grocery store, I had to do that. So they were very happy to hear that, because I said I can go faster because I'm used to doing that already. So it's always good to point out your strengths in an interview. If something comes up, don't be shy. Let them know, hey, I can help you there because I already have experience with that. They were very happy with that. And I got hired there. Now, when I got hired there, minimum wage was $4.20 an hour. They started me at $4.25 an hour, and I stayed there. I worked there for 3 years, and they were very stingy with raises. I didn't get any benefits of any sort because they had 3 levels for employees. You had full-time. If you worked 40 hours a week, you were full-time. Part-time, which in order to be considered part-time, I think you had to work a minimum of, I think it was a minimum of 32 hours a week that you had to work just to be considered part-time. Now, and then most of their employees were what they called on-call, that's where if you work less than 32 hours a week, and that's what most of their employees were. And if you're on-call, then you don't get any benefits, you don't get any vacation time, you don't get anything beyond your hourly pay. So I was on-call, and but I was still working like 30 hours a week, and I maintained that throughout my sophomore year, my junior year, and my senior year of college. So I stayed there. About a year into it, there was this really nice lady who worked, and I worked in the evenings and on weekends. And so the one good thing about this job was they would work with my schedule every semester. If I had evening classes a couple of days a week, they would keep that in mind when making the schedule, and I just would not work those evenings. They would put me on different days. They were always, and that's why I stayed so long, because they were so obliging because my schedule changed all the time. And in the summertime, I only took one summer class one year. I think it was the year before. I think it was right after I finished my junior year. I had to take a statistics class in summer because it was the only time I could get in there. It would fill up so fast. I couldn't of state and go live with him. It was the craziest thing. I have no idea what happened to her, but she gave a week's notice, and then she packed up and was gone. She went and moved in, as far as I know, she went and moved in with that guy that she met. And I don't think, if she ever came back, I didn't hear about it. I don't know. I mean, I hope she's doing okay. But so once she was gone, they needed somebody to work in the pharmacy in the evenings. And they asked me if I was interested. I said, sure, I don't know anything about it, but yeah, I'll be glad to. And that's another thing I would say as a piece of advice. When you work somewhere, always be willing to learn new things. You know, it can help you out later. It may not help you out in this job, but it can give you experience that will help you get a better job in the future. And that is exactly what it did for me. Because I worked in a retail pharmacy there so I worked at Eckerd's for about 3 years. And for the 2 of those 3 years, I worked exclusively in the pharmacy. I didn't work up front anymore. So working back there, I had to learn how to help fill prescriptions. I learned about different prescription medications, all that kind of stuff. And that back there was where I really fell in love with organizing shelves, because it seems like I did more of it back there, because I would have to organize not only the shelves out on the floor where the customers are, but also the shelves back in the pharmacy where all the medications are. And it was my favorite part of the job, was getting to organize those shelves. I loved it so much. It was so nice. To me, it's just satisfying to look at a shelf and it's in disarray, and you can just take a minute and just fix it all and make it pretty again. It's just very satisfying. Okay, so I worked at Eckerd's for 3 years. Alright, now after that, let me think. Oh, hang on a minute. No. There was a bit of turmoil. Now, this was before I went to work in the pharmacy. Wasn't it? No, it was while I worked in the pharmacy. This was like 25 years ago. I'm trying to remember. Okay. There was this one manager that I worked with more than anybody, and he worked pretty much every night. And he was such a jerk. We'll call him Mark. Okay, Mark worked a lot. And he seemed to take great pleasure in making me uncomfortable. And he was very demanding and not very appreciative of anything. And he was really good friends with the train. He was good friends with the security guard. The Eckerd's that I worked in was in this little strip mall, and he was good friends with the security guard, who did very little security guarding. He basically spent most of his time out behind the strip mall smoking. I mean, that's mostly what he would do. He was always back there smoking. But they were good friends, and sometimes the security guard would come in, and Mark would, if he saw that I was within earshot, he would tell like a really dirty joke or something, because he knew it made me uncomfortable. It would make me blush. It would just make me very uncomfortable, and he thought that was hilarious. He thought it was so funny, and then he would laugh at me for being embarrassed. I hated working with him. The only good thing about working with him, though, was you get these unreasonable customers. I mean, they call them Karens today, and most of them look like the stereotypical Karen. They would come in there with a chip on their shoulder, and they would get mad. I made a video of a Karen, and it's based completely on my experiences with these people when I worked at Eckerd's. They will come in there and get mad about something ridiculous, like they try to get an item that's not on sale, and they know it's not on sale. I don't care what they say, they know it's not. And they try to get it I know he never suffered any repercussions or anything, but it always caught those people off guard when he pulled out those cards, because I think it hit them, wow, he has to deal with this pretty frequently if he just has those cards on him all the time. I would say in a typical week it would happen probably twice a week. We would have somebody come in like that and just make a scene and be ridiculous. And I really enjoyed making that video because it all came from personal experience with these people. They're unbelievable. But that was the only redeeming value to Mark, was that he would not put up with them. And he would back me up. Like, they'd get mad at me and yell at me and then demand to speak to my manager. So he would come back there and he would back me up and say, yeah, she's right. This is not on sale. And then they would get mad. Anyway, where was I? Oh, okay, here's where I was going with that. Okay, so I had been working there, and I think I was a really good employee. I worked every Saturday. Now, even after I started working back in the pharmacy, every Saturday I would come in and work from 8 to 5. Literally every Saturday. I worked every Saturday for like over a year or 2 years. And I would come in and set the sale, because the sales would reset every Sunday. So I would come in on Saturday, and we have to have all these little price tags on the sale items. You have to pull all those off, pull the sale stickers off. I would go around and do that. And then I would have to do all new. I would have all the tags and everything for the new sale items, and I would have to go put all those out for the things that were on sale. And have my little sale price gun. I have to put a little yellow price sticker on the stuff, and that, and I would help out in the pharmacy, and I would help customers. I mean, it would take all day to do, because you're constantly being interrupted. So, I felt that I deserved a raise. I mean, I'd been making $4.25 for a long time, and I felt that I was a good employee, and I think a raise would have been appropriate. So I talked to Mark about it. I said, Mark, I think I've been a very loyal employee. I'm here every day on time. I work hard. I would like to ask for a raise. And he just laughed. He just laughed at me and said, I don't think so. He said, no, I'm going to have to deny that. No, I think you make enough money. And I said, well, then I think I'm going to have to speak to your manager. And he said, oh, that's not a good idea. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I said, I'm gonna. And he got mad. And he was very pissed at me for saying that I was going to do that. And we ended up getting into a squabble because I talked to his boss. And his boss said, well, I really trust Mark to decide whether or not you should get a raise, because he works with you every night. I don't work with you, because his boss worked during the day, and he was always leaving as I came in, so I never worked with him. And he said, yeah, I really think Mark should be the one to decide that, and I'm sorry, but if he thinks you don't need a raise, then I'm going to have to go with that. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to deny that. And it really made me mad. I was angry, because, I work really hard. I think I deserve more than $4.25 an hour to do this job. And we ended up getting into a squabble. Like the next day, I came in early and I said, I want to talk to you. And I said, if you don't give me a raise, I'm not even asking for much. I'm asking for just a little raise, whatever you would give me. If you won't do that, I'm going to have to seek employment elsewhere. And he said, well, I'm not going to do it, because I think your pay is fine. And I said, well, here's my 2 weeks notice. I'm giving you, this is my 2 weeks notice right now. I always give notice. It's a good practice to get into. I said, I'm leaving. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, all right. So I worked my 2 weeks, and it was like a game of chicken. Like, he didn't believe me. As we got closer to the end of the 2 weeks, he said, you're not really leaving. I said, yes, I am. Here's the date on the calendar. This is my last day. Do not schedule me beyond this point, and if you do, that's your problem. I will not be here. don't care if it's temporary. I need money. You know, I have bills to pay. I got stuff I gotta pay for. I got student loans, but one of the reasons why I kept working was because that way I would only have to, it would decrease the amount I had to borrow, so I wouldn't have to come out with so much debt. So I'm still in school and I'm stressing about the job thing. I put in before I went to the temp agency, I worked at Food Line for like, I want to say I was there for about 3 months, and it wasn't getting any better. It was awful. So I put in my 2 weeks notice and went to the temp agency, and that's when I got the job. I worked as a janitor in a high school. I was a janitor at Laney High School, where Michael Jordan went to high school in Wilmington. I was a janitor there for about a month, I think. It was just a temporary position because one of their janitors was out on medical leave. Now at this time I was about 19, and I looked like one of the students at the school because they said you can wear whatever, it doesn't matter. We don't supply you with clothes or anything. You just wear whatever you want to wear. I scrubbed toilets. I mopped floors. I used the buffer on the floors. I did whatever they needed me to do. I mainly, it seems like I spent most of my time cleaning bathrooms. And it was so funny because the students would look at me like, my God, what did she do to get that punishment? Why are they making her scrub toilet? I think because you would hear them sometimes whispering to each other, like, who's that girl? Why is she doing that? They thought I was a student there. It was really funny. I should have looked at him and said, stay in school, kids. Don't end up like me or something. I don't know. I never said anything to them. But I did that for a month. The pay was okay. I don't remember what it was, but it was okay. And then I got another job at a factory making plastic pipe fittings. And I did that for several months. I did that. And I was still working there when Mark from Eckerd's called me. He said, look, Mary, you know, things were said, and I'm sure you regret what, you know, some of the things. We all say things in anger we don't mean. I said, I meant everything I said. I don't have any regrets. Maybe you do. He said, will you please come back? I said, oh, I don't know. I mean, I already have another job. He said, please. He said, I'd be more than happy to appreciate it. I was very honored, but it was time to move on. I was ready to. I just felt, I could feel it in my soul. Like it's time to go. It's time for me to move on from here. And I took some time off and worked again full time, 6 days a week. I went back to Black & Decker. I had to start out as a temp, but after 6 weeks they hired me permanently, and it was great. I think at that time I was making like $12 an hour, which was really, really, really good back. This was in the mid-90s, 95. So I was making snake lights this time. I worked on an assembly line making snake lights, and we worked 6 days a week. And I worked there for 9 months, and then I had saved up some money, and I didn't want to take out any more loans to finish my English degree. So I just took classes as I could afford to pay for them. I went to UNC Greensboro, and I ended up having to take 4 classes because I found out that you had to have 12 credit hours at the school to graduate from there, even though I only needed like 1 class. They said, no, you have to have 12 credit hours here before you could graduate. So I took the last English class I needed, and then I just took 3 random classes that looked interesting. I took a sociology class, I took a PE class, and then I think I took another English class just for fun. But while I was doing that, so I worked at Black & Decker until I went back to school, and then I moved to Greensboro. And when I moved here, the first time I moved here was in 1996, and I've lived here off and on ever since, except for a few years I had to live somewhere else. So I got another job at Eckerd's. Because I had the retail pharmacy experience, I got a job at an Eckerd's here in Greensboro, and I worked there for almost a year. And one day, a nurse from one of the hospitals here came in and said, they're looking for pharmacy technicians at the hospital. Have you ever thought about switching over to hospital pharmacy? I said, no, never thought about it. She said, you should definitely look into it. They're looking for people right now. They're hiring right now. And she gave me the name of the person in HR to contact. So I called this person, and I went in for an interview and got the job, even though I didn't have any hospital pharmacy experience. Now, retail pharmacy and hospital pharmacy are very different. But my advice to you, if you work in retail pharmacy, definitely check it out. I'm telling you, it's totally different. There's a learning curve. I mean, you have to learn a lot of stuff, but it's so much better. Oh my God, it's so much better. You don't have to deal with customers. You don't have to deal with being in that retail environment. You don't have to deal with any of that. And the pay is better. The benefits are way better. In my experience, they were way better. Because I had no benefits at Eckerd, so anything would be an improvement, but they were good. The insurance and the paid time off and everything were great. And the pay was, I would tell you, just walking in the door at the hospital, my hourly salary, that's funny, hourly salary. My pay almost doubled just walking in the door from what I was making in retail. Seriously, check it out. It's definitely worth is the generic name, so it would be under I. And you're constantly having to fill orders, unit doses of medications as the orders come in from the doctors. You have to learn to read doctors' handwriting, which if you work in retail, you may be able to do that already. When the orders would come in, they had a pneumatic tube system, and the orders would come from all the different floors. This hospital had 6 floors in it. And all the pneumatic tubes would come down with all the orders, and you have to be able to sort through and prioritize what's coming in, and you have to get them to the pharmacist, and you have to be able to sort, okay, this is important, this is not, put the important stuff at the top of the stack. And that takes a while to learn that. And you're going to screw up some and feel bad, but, you know, the pharmacist had to check behind me for a while just because a lot of it just looks like squiggles, and it may be something important, and I just don't see it. But yeah, it is fantastic. I worked in hospital pharmacy for about 3 years. Even beyond finishing my English degree, I kept working there because I liked it so much. I was working second shift. I love second shift. You know, I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids, and it was great because I would have all morning to do whatever I wanted to do. You know, I could run errands. If I had to schedule appointments, I could do them in the mornings. And then I would work from either 2:30 to 10, no, 2:30 to 11, or 3 to midnight. And then I would work every other weekend, which meant I got a day off in the middle of the, every week I would get a weekday off. So it was great. I loved it, and I loved the people I worked with. You know, I still stay in touch with a couple of the people that I worked with there. It was great. It was really something. So, I did that for 3 years, and then I worked as a Child Protective Services investigator. I did that for about a year and a half. But that was when I got involved in the cult and ended up moving to Illinois. So I had to leave that job. That's a very stressful job. It has a lot of turnover. It's kind of weird too, because during the time that I was a CPS investigator for social services, my mom actually worked in the same building because she also worked for social services. She worked for DSS for 20 years. And at that time, she was the supervisor of the Work First unit, helping people get job training and, stuff like that, helping them sort out things that they need in order to establish a career for themselves. She was the supervisor of that unit. So, during the time that I was the CPS investigator, we were actually working out of the same building, although I hardly ever saw her. Like, I would see her car in the parking lot, but she was on, like, it was a big building, so she would be way over here, and my office was way over here, so every is a summary of the jobs that I have had. My advice to you is don't quit a job before you have another job lined up. Stay in that job until you have another job lined up. Keep an updated copy of your resume handy. You never know when you might need it. And once you create your resume, you just have to update it every now and then. And there are plenty of templates online that can show you how to create a resume. You know, it's really great. You can look online and see, how you can pick whatever format works. I would recommend keeping your resume to one page. Don't make it super long and detailed. Nobody's going to read that. If it's more than a page, they're probably not going to read the rest of it. They're going to look at that first page. Don't burn bridges. When you leave a place, try to leave on good terms, if at all possible. Don't burn bridges. It may come back to haunt you later. Never pass up an opportunity to learn new things on your job, because, like I said, it may help you later. Don't ever say that's not my job. Don't say that. If there's anything you can do to help, do it. Because believe it or not, more often than not, the people in charge are going to notice. Now, they may take advantage of you, kind of like, I feel like Mark at Eckerd took advantage of me, and then his supervisor was lazy and didn't bother to do any digging, but he took advantage of me. And when I left, I think things kind of fell apart, and whoever they had working, he realized, oh my God, Mary was so much, she did so much, now that she's not here, oh, it sucks. And I want to say this too, after I went back to work there, all the dirty jokes and the inappropriate stuff stopped. I didn't say anything to him. I think he was just so happy to have me back that he didn't want to make me feel uncomfortable. He was actually nicer after that. His attitude changed. He wasn't quite as hateful and jerky as he was before. I still didn't like the guy. Oh, and he hit on me too on my last day. That was really gross. Yeah, no. I just turned on my heel, and I was headed out for the last time, and he asked me out, and he was really kind of greasy about it, and I just literally turned on my heel and walked out the door, and I never went back. But yeah, so you learn new things. Don't quit your job before you have a new one. Oh, and always give 2 weeks notice, if at all possible. Don't just quit. Don't do that. That's bad. Always give notice. And remember, you're not too good for any job. If you need money, you're not too good to do that job. That's something that my parents always told me growing up. Nobody owes you anything, and you are not too good to do any job. See, you bring dignity to the job. I scrubbed toilets, and I was really good at it. I mopped floors. I scrubbed floors. I made snake lights and toaster ovens and batteries, and every day I would go into work and do my very best, no matter what I was doing, no matter what I was making, no matter how much my salary was. I went in and did my very best every day. And that's called a good work ethic. And if these days, if you have a good work ethic, you will not have a problem finding a job and keeping a job. But don't let them take advantage of you. But at the same time, go in and do your best every day. And it'll never steer you wrong. So that's just a summary of my work history.